What would you do if you discovered that the most terrifying stories from your childhood were based on real events? Imagine you're sifting through dusty archives in an abandoned Siberian village and stumble upon documents that were never meant to see the light of day. Records of a family the locals tried to forget, of brothers whose deeds were so monstrous that the church refused to include their names in the parish registers. In the depths of the frozen Siberian taiga, where long winters isolate villages for months, where hunger and despair become constant companions, an evil was born that haunts these places to this day. Join us as we uncover a story that no one wanted to tell. The story of the Volkov brothers and their cursed legacy. The winter of 1874 in Siberia was one of the harshest in history. The temperature plummeted to an unimaginable 50 degrees below zero, and snowstorms raged for weeks, making any communication between remote settlements impossible. It was on such a day that Maria Petrova, a young teacher from St. Petersburg, arrived in the remote village of Chorny Bor. She had been sent here by the provincial education department to establish the first school in the region for the children of local hunters, lumberjacks, and their families. Maria expected to encounter primitive conditions, but the reality exceeded all her fears. Chorny Bor was no more than 20 wooden huts scattered along the edge of the vast taiga forest. The center of the village was an Orthodox church built during the reign of Catherine the Great. Its domes, blackened by time, were barely visible above the snow-covered roofs of the houses. But there was something else about this place that Maria felt immediately upon arrival. A crushing weight, as if an invisible hand was pressing on her shoulders, forcing her to instinctively lower her gaze. The elderly priest, Father Mikhail, the only educated man in Chorny Bor, met Maria at the church gates. His long, gray beard and emaciated face spoke of years of hardship far from civilization. Father Mikhail led the teacher to a small hut that the villagers had prepared for her. As they walked along the village's only street, Maria noticed how the locals quickly closed their shutters and locked their doors, and mothers hastily led their children inside their homes as they approached. On her first night in her new home, Maria couldn't sleep. The wind howled in the chimney like the voices of lost souls, and in the silence between gusts, she thought she heard whispers coming from the dark corners of the room. In the morning, when the first rays of the winter sun barely pierced through the frosted windows, Maria decided to settle in and accidentally discovered a hiding place under a floorboard near the stove. Inside was a bundle wrapped in leather and tied with a frayed rope. With hands trembling from cold and excitement, Maria unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a diary written in faded ink on pages yellowed with age. The author's name was written on the first page: Alexander Volkov, Feldsher, Medic, 1869. Maria began to read, and with each page her horror grew. The diary contained entries about a local family, 2 twin brothers, Ivan and Stepan Volkov, distant relatives of the Feldsher, and the strange events associated with them. According to the Feldsher's records, the Volkov brothers were born in the winter of 1840 in a hunting cabin deep in the taiga. Their mother died in childbirth, and their father, Grigory Volkov, a hunter known for his cruel disposition, raised them in complete isolation. The boys grew up practically wild, rarely appeared in the village, and when they did come, they kept to themselves and spoke to each other in some incomprehensible language of their own. The village children were afraid of them, and the adults crossed themselves when the twins passed by. Alexander Volkov wrote that in 1850 he was called to Grigory's cabin, who had fallen seriously ill. When the Feldsher arrived, he found that the old man had been dead for several days, and the twins, who were then 25 years old, were simply living next to the decomposing body as if nothing had happened. The Feldsher insisted that the body be buried according to Christian rites, but the brothers resisted, and in the end, it took the intervention of several men from the village to deliver Grigory's body to the cemetery. After their father's death, Ivan and Stepan began to appear more often in Chorny Bor. They offered meat that they had hunted and animal hides in exchange for bread, salt, and vodka. Alexander noted that from that time on, domestic animals began to disappear from the village. First chickens and ducks, then goats, and then dogs. The residents blamed the disappearances on wolves, which had become unusually numerous in the surrounding forests. In late 1866, the first human disappearance occurred. a 10-year-old boy, the son of a blacksmith, went into the forest for firewood and did not return. The search turned up nothing, but local hunters noticed the strange behavior of the wolves. The predators seemed to avoid a certain part of the forest where the Volkov brothers' cabin was located. The feldsher recorded the words of an old hunter. "Wolves don't hunt where they smell the scent of their killed brethren, and the stench is so strong that even the beasts are afraid." In the spring of 1867, another resident of Chorny Bor disappeared, a young widow who lived on the outskirts of the village. Her hut was empty, but without any signs of a struggle or violence, as if the woman had simply walked out and vanished into thin air. The villagers began to talk about a curse, about demons that had settled in the forest, about God's punishment for sins. Father Mikhail held prayer services and blessed the houses, but the fear only increased. Alexander Volkov, as an educated man inclined to scientific thinking, did not believe in a supernatural explanation for what was happening. He began his own investigation and began to carefully observe the Volkov brothers. In his diary, the feldsher noted that the twins began to look healthier and stronger than before, despite the harsh winter and the lack of food, from which all the villagers suffered. Their clothes, previously consisting of rough hides, had been replaced with better quality items, similar to those worn by the missing widow. In the summer of 1867, the feldsher decided to follow the brothers and secretly went to their cabin. What he saw forced him to flee back to the village in a state close to madness. Alexander recorded his observations with a trembling hand, often interrupting the narrative and switching to incoherent phrases. From his notes, Maria was able to understand that human bones, cleaned of flesh, were scattered around the brothers' cabin, and strange amulets made of teeth and small bones hung from the trees. The feldsher tried to convince the village elder to organize a squad to detain the brothers, but no one dared to go to the cursed cabin. Instead, it was decided to send a messenger to the district town for help. But before the authorities arrived, another disappearance occurred. The village elder himself disappeared, who one evening went out to smoke a pipe on the porch and never returned. By October of 1867, a detachment of Cossacks, led by the police officer, arrived in Chorny Bor. According to Alexander, the authorities were skeptical of the claims of cannibalism, but still decided to inspect the brothers' cabin. The detachment returned empty-handed. The cabin was abandoned. The brothers had disappeared, leaving behind only the embers of a fire and several strange symbols carved on the trees around the clearing. The police officer deemed the case unworthy of attention and left, and life in Chorny Bor gradually returned to normal. People tried not to talk about the Volkov brothers and the disappearances that had occurred, as if hoping that silence would help them forget the horror they had experienced. But a few months later, in February of 1868, when the frosts gripped the taiga and the snow swept over all the trails, the brothers unexpectedly returned. They appeared in the village in the middle of the night, during a severe blizzard. The first to notice them was an old healer who lived on the edge of the village. She saw two tall figures walking down the main street, their silhouettes barely discernible through the snow. According to her, the brothers walked absolutely synchronously, as if they were a single being with two bodies, and a strange smell emanated from them, unlike anything human. That night, two children disappeared, a boy and a girl, from the family of a hunter who lived near the church. In the morning, the parents found only traces of blood in the snow leading to the forest and strange footprints, as if left by a human, but with unnaturally long fingers. This was the last straw for the residents of Chorny Bor. A detachment was gathered from all the men of the village, armed with guns, axes, and pitchforks. Even Father Mikhail joined them, carrying a large silver cross and holy water. The feldsher Alexander described their hike into the taiga in detail. The detachment followed the tracks in the snow, which led them to a new refuge of the brothers, a cave in a rocky hill, about 5 versts from the village. The smell coming from the cave was so terrible that many men could not bring themselves to go inside. Only 6, including the feldsher, dared to cross the threshold of this lair. What they found inside exceeded their worst expectations. The walls of the cave were hung with human scalps and skin, like trophies. In the center was a stone altar on which lay the remains of children's bodies. Skulls were placed around the altar, forming a circle, and strange symbols, drawn with something resembling dried blood, were visible on the walls. But the brothers themselves were not in the cave. The men collected the remains of the children for Christian burial and decided to set up an ambush to catch the brothers when they returned. For 3 days and 3 nights they waited in the forest around the cave, but the twins never appeared. On the 4th day, exhausted by the cold and lack of food, they returned to the village, only to discover a new tragedy in their absence. Chorny Bor had been attacked. 3 houses were burned to the ground, several more were looted, and in the church, they found the bodies of 4 women laid out in the shape of a cross in front of the altar. Their throats had been cut, and a strange symbol, similar to those seen in the cave, was carved on each of their foreheads. The only survivors were those who managed to hide in the cellars or flee into the forest. According to the description of the survivors, there were only 2 attackers, but they moved with inhuman speed and strength. The brothers did not kill everyone indiscriminately, but seemed to choose their victims according to some criterion known only to them. They took not valuables but food, clothing, and some strange items. Icons, church books, candles. After this tragedy, most of the residents left Chorny Bor, moving to neighboring villages or the district town. Only a few families remained, too poor or stubborn to leave their homes, and Father Mikhail, who refused to abandon his flock in their hour of need. The felcher Alexander also decided to stay, feeling responsible for what was happening, since the Volkov brothers were his relatives, albeit distant ones. In the spring of 1868, a detachment of soldiers from the provincial town arrived in Chorny Bor, sent to investigate reports of mass murders. By that time, the village had already turned into a ghost of its former existence. Abandoned houses, empty streets, an atmosphere of constant fear. The soldiers spent several weeks searching the surrounding forests, but found no trace of the Volkov brothers. The official conclusion of the authorities was that the murders were committed by a gang of deserters or escaped convicts, who had probably already left these places. But the residents of Chorny Bor knew the truth. They continued to see the brothers flitting between the trees on the edge of the forest, hear their strange whispers in the howling wind, find traces of their presence. Broken branches, strange signs carved on the bark of trees, the remains of fires with charred bones of unknown origin. In the summer of 1868, Alexander Volkov decided to put an end to this nightmare. He gathered information about the ancient beliefs of the local tribes who had inhabited these lands before the arrival of the Russians, and learned about a ritual of expelling spirits that required human blood. The felcher suggested that the brothers were practicing a perverted form of this ritual, and that their cannibalism had not only gastronomic, but also religious underpinnings. Together with Father Mikhail, they devised a plan to capture and destroy the brothers. The priest provided special prayers of exorcism, and the felcher prepared a special mixture of herbs that, according to him, was supposed to deprive the brothers of their supernatural powers. They spread a rumor that a wealthy merchant with a family had appeared in the village to attract the attention of the cannibals. The plan worked only in part. On the night of the full moon, the brothers did appear in Chorny Bor, but they seemed to know about the ambush. Instead of heading to the house with the decoy victims, they attacked the church where Alexander and Father Mikhail were. A fierce battle ensued, during which the felcher managed to wound one of the brothers with his own knife, but the second inflicted a fatal blow to Alexander's chest. Father Mikhail tried to perform the rite of exorcism, but was interrupted by the brothers, who knocked him to the floor and began to utter strange words in an unknown language. According to the priest's testimony, which the dying felcher later recorded in his diary, at that moment a black smoke appeared in the church, forming a figure resembling a man with the head of a wolf. This entity addressed the brothers in their strange language, after which all 3 disappeared, leaving behind only the smell of sulfur and scorched floorboards where they had stood. Alexander Volkov died at dawn, having managed to record the latest events and his conclusions. He believed that the brothers had made a deal with a demonic being that had granted them supernatural abilities in exchange for human sacrifices. The felcher warned that, even if the brothers disappeared, their curse remained in force and Chorny Bor would never be a safe place to live. The diary ended there. Maria was shocked by what she had read. but her rational mind refused to believe in demons and curses. She decided that this must be the product of the Felcher's sick imagination, perhaps under the influence of opium, which was then often used as medicine. Nevertheless, she could not deny that there were many details in the story that explained the strange behavior of the residents of Chorny Bor and their obvious fear of something lurking in the forest. Maria decided to discuss her find with Father Mikhail, the only person in the village who could confirm or deny the story described in the diary. She waited for the end of the morning service and approached the priest when the parishioners had already dispersed. Father Mikhail listened to her with a stone face, showing neither surprise nor interest. When Maria finished her story, the priest was silent for a long time, and then quietly said, "What you found was better left buried under the floorboards. There are things that should not be spoken aloud, especially in these places." Father Mikhail refused to discuss the contents of the diary, but offered Maria to visit the church archive, where parish books had been kept since the founding of Chorny Bor. The priest pointed her to an old chest in the corner of the vestry and left her alone with the dusty tomes. Maria spent several hours looking through the records of births, baptisms, marriages, and deaths of the residents of Chorny Bor over the past 100 years. She discovered that many pages in the books for 1866 to 1868 had been carefully cut out, and some records were crossed out or covered in ink, so that it was impossible to read. However, she managed to find a record of the birth of twins, Ivan and Stepan Volkov, in 1840, with the note "Impious Birth" in the margins, apparently made by Father Mikhail's predecessor. She also found a strange record from 1856 about the death of a certain Peter Volkov, another brother who was not mentioned in the Felcher's diary. The cause of death was listed as eaten by beasts, with the additional note, "Lord, have mercy on us." In the records after 1868, there was no mention of the Volkov surname, as if someone had deliberately erased all traces of this family from official documents. In the evening of the same day, Maria tried to ask the local residents about the Volkov brothers, but met only silence and frightened glances. No one wanted to talk about this topic, even the elderly women who usually willingly shared village gossip and stories. The only person who dared to say anything was old Agafya, a blind healer who lived on the outskirts of the village. When Maria came to her hut, Agafya was already waiting for her, sitting by the stove and sorting through dried herbs. The old woman, without waiting for questions, began to speak in a quiet, creaky voice. "I knew you would come, teacher. I knew you would find the diary and start asking. They always come back when someone starts asking. They feel when they are remembered, when their names are spoken aloud." According to Agafya, the Volkov brothers were not ordinary people. From the very beginning, their mother, Evdokia, turned to her for help when she could not conceive a child after 7 years. The healer gave her a special decoction and herbs collected at an old pagan temple and warned her not to drink it on the full moon. But Evdokia, in despair, ignored the warning and soon became pregnant. The birth was difficult, and the woman died giving birth not to one, but to 3 twin sons, Ivan, Stepan, and Peter. The children were strange from the start. They did not cry, slept a lot, and refused their mother's milk, preferring raw meat that their father softened for them. They developed faster than ordinary children. They started walking at 6 months and talking at 1 year, but their speech was incomprehensible. They seemed to communicate in their own language. The local priest, Father Mikhail's predecessor, refused to baptize them, stating that there was no divine spark in them, only emptiness and darkness. Father Grigory Volkov took the children into the taiga and raised them far from people, teaching them hunting and survival in harsh conditions. When the brothers were about 10 years old, the youngest, Peter, died under strange circumstances. According to the official version, he was mauled by wolves, but village rumors said that he was killed and eaten by his own brothers in some perverted form of ritual. After that, Ivan and Stepan became even more withdrawn and wild. They had practically no contact with people other than their father and appeared in the village only occasionally to exchange hides for necessary goods. Agafya claimed that she had once seen them talking to wolves in the forest, and the predators listened to them as if understanding human speech. As they grew older, the brothers became more and more alike, to the point that even their father could not tell them apart. They moved synchronously, finished each other's sentences, and seemed to be able to communicate without words. The old healer believed that they shared one soul for two, possibly including the soul of the deceased third brother. Agafia confirmed much of what was written in the Felcher's diary, but added details that Alexander did not know or did not consider it necessary to mention. According to her, the brothers practiced an ancient shamanic cult that existed in these lands long before the arrival of the Russians. This cult included the worship of a wolf spirit, the master of the taiga, and required human sacrifices in exchange for strength and immortality. The healer believed that the brothers had made a deal with this spirit, offering him their blood and the flesh of their victims. As a result, they gained the ability to turn into wolves, supernatural strength and speed, as well as some magical abilities, such as control over animals and the ability to instill fear in people. But in return, the spirit demanded more and more sacrifices, and the brothers became obsessed with this bloody ritual. After the disappearance of the brothers in 1868, described in the Felcher's diary, Chorny Bor gradually became deserted. Many families left, the houses stood abandoned, and only a handful of the most stubborn or poor residents remained. From time to time, the torn bodies of hunters or travelers were found in the surrounding area, but the official authorities blamed these cases on wolf attacks, which were indeed unusually numerous in those places. Agafia warned Maria that by starting the investigation, she had attracted the attention of the brothers, wherever they were. Now, according to the old woman, they always come back when their names are spoken aloud, when they are remembered and their story is told. And she added with a tremor in her voice, "The next full moon, in 3 days, teacher, lock the doors and windows, don't leave the house after sunset, and under no circumstances respond if you hear voices calling you from the forest." Maria returned to her hut with a heavy heart and mixed feelings. Her rational mind still resisted accepting a supernatural explanation for what was happening, but she could not ignore the coincidence and consistency of the story from different sources. That night, she had nightmares. She was running through a snow-covered forest, pursued by two figures whose bodies were distorted, transforming from human to wolf and back again. She woke up in a cold sweat, hearing the howl of a wolf, sounding so close, as if the beast was standing right under her window. Maria spent the next 2 days preparing for the opening of the school, trying to distract herself from the dark thoughts about the Volkov brothers. She set up a classroom in an empty house next to the church, arranged the textbooks and notebooks brought from the city, and wrote lesson plans. The locals treated her initiative with suspicion, but several families liked the idea of education for their children, and by the end of the second day, Maria had 8 future students. On the evening before the full moon, a strong blizzard broke out. The wind howled in the chimneys, throwing handfuls of prickly snow at the windows. The shutters creaked and the logs of the hut groaned like old bones. Maria sat by the stove, rereading the Felcher's diary and making her own notes. She decided to write down everything she had learned about the Volkov brothers so that in case, she didn't want to think in what case but felt the need to leave evidence. Around midnight, the blizzard suddenly subsided, and in the ensuing silence, a knock on the door was clearly heard. Maria froze, remembering Agafia's warning. The knock repeated, more persistent, and then a child's voice rang out. "Auntie teacher, help! I'm lost in the blizzard. I'm freezing." Maria went to the door, but did not rush to open it. What could a child be doing outside at this hour and in this weather? She decided to check. "What's your name, boy?" "Vanya, Auntie," the voice replied. "I'm the son of the hunter, Fedor. We live on the edge of the village. Dad went into the forest this morning and didn't come back. I went to look for him and got lost." Maria did not remember a boy named Vanya among her future students, but that didn't mean anything. She didn't know all the children in the village yet. She had already reached for the latch when she noticed something strange. There was no shadow of the child's feet visible under the door, although the light from her lamp should have cast such a shadow. "Where does your father hunt, Vanya?" she asked, stepping back from the door. "In the forest, where else?" The voice laughed, and it seemed to Maria that it didn't sound so childish anymore. Low, growling notes appeared in it. "In what part of the forest?" she clarified, feeling a chill run down her spine. There was a pause, and then the voice said, no longer hiding its true nature, deep and unnaturally stretching the vowels. Behind the Black Hill, teacher, where the old cedars lean over the wolf's cave. Come, let's look for him together. Open the door, Maria Petrovna. We are waiting for you. Maria recoiled from the door and crossed herself with a trembling hand. Outside, there was a sound similar to both laughter and growling, and then the sound of footsteps moving away from the house. After a few seconds, she heard a wolf's howl. This time not one, but two, merging into a strange, almost musical harmony. They sounded farther and farther away until they dissolved into the night silence. For the rest of the night, Maria did not close her eyes, sitting by the stove with her father's hunting rifle on her knees. She no longer doubted the reality of the threat coming from the Volkov brothers and decided that in the morning she would go to Father Mikhail for advice. She understood that she could not simply leave and abandon the village to its fate, especially the children who were supposed to become her students. In the morning, even before sunrise, there was another knock on the door. This time, Father Mikhail was behind it, pale and haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he too had not slept all night. The priest immediately got down to business. They're back, Maria Petrovna. A man disappeared from the village last night, Fedor Kuzmin, a hunter from the eastern edge. His wife says that he went out into the yard around midnight, hearing a strange sound, and did not return. The tracks in the snow lead to the forest, and then break off, as if he had been carried away into the air. Maria told the priest about the night visit and the strange voice that called itself the son of the missing hunter. Father Mikhail turned even paler. Fedor has no son, only 2 daughters. It's them. They're using old tricks. Lord, have mercy on us sinners. The priest confessed that he knew about the return of the brothers even before the hunter's disappearance. Last evening, during the blizzard, he found a dead wolf with a cut throat on the threshold of the church, with a symbol cut into its side, similar to those described in the Felcher's diary. It was a warning or a challenge. Father Mikhail believed we must do something, Maria declared resolutely. If what is written in the diary and what Agafya has told us is true, the brothers won't stop at one victim. They will kill again and again. Father Mikhail was silent for a long time before saying with a heavy sigh, there is a way. Alexander didn't write everything down in his diary. Before he died, he told me how to destroy the brothers once and for all, but it requires finding the place of their birth and performing a special rite there on the night of the full moon. I never dared to do it alone because it's too dangerous. According to the priest, the rite required a combination of Christian prayers with elements of an ancient shamanic ritual, which contradicted his sacred office. However, the situation was so serious that he was prepared to do it. The rite required certain ingredients: holy water, a silver cross, a herb called wolfsbane that grows only on old graves, and most importantly, the blood of a relative of the Volkov brothers. There were no problems with the first 3 components. Father Mikhail had a supply of holy water, a church silver cross, and the herb could be found in the village cemetery. However, there were difficulties with the blood of a relative. As far as they knew, the brothers had no living relatives. At that moment, old Agafya, who had quietly entered the house and was listening to their conversation, intervened. There is another Volkov, she said in her creaky voice. Alexander's daughter, Natalia. He sent her to the city before all these events when she was only 5 years old. She should be a grown woman now if she is alive. This changed everything. If they could find Natalia and convince her to help, they would have a chance to end the bloody legacy of the Cannibal brothers once and for all. Maria volunteered to go to the provincial city to search for the Felcher's daughter, but Father Mikhail objected. It's too dangerous. The wolves are surely watching the village and will intercept you on the road. Besides, today is the full moon, and we don't have time to search. We must act now. They argued for a long time and eventually reached a compromise. Agafya remembered that she had a lock of little Natalia's hair, which Alexander had given her for safekeeping before sending his daughter to the city. According to the healer, hair contains a particle of a person's life force and can replace blood in the ritual, although the effect will be weaker. They decided to act immediately. Agafia went to her hut for the lock of hair and other necessary herbs. Father Mikhail went to the church for holy water and the cross, and Maria stayed to prepare everything needed for the trip to the taiga. They had to find the hunting cabin where the brothers were born and perform the rite before midnight. By noon, everything was ready. They gathered at the edge of the village, armed not only with the components for the ritual but also with weapons. Father Mikhail had an old army revolver, Maria had a hunting rifle, and Agafia took a sharp knife, claiming that she knew how to use it better than many men. In addition to them, 3 local hunters, who had decided to avenge their missing comrade, joined the expedition. The journey was not going to be easy or safe. The cabin was deep in the taiga, about 10 versts from the village, and getting there before dark was almost impossible, especially in the deep snow. But they couldn't wait for the next full moon. Every day of delay could cost the life of another resident of Chorny Bor. They set off as the sun began to set. The hunters went ahead, clearing a path through the snow. Maria and Father Mikhail followed them, and old Agafia, surprisingly spry for her age, brought up the rear. The forest greeted them with wary silence. Even the birds were not singing, as if sensing the approach of something sinister. The first few versts passed without incident, but as they went deeper into the taiga, strange things began to happen. First, they heard whispers, as if someone was talking very close, but in an incomprehensible language. Then one of the hunters noticed 2 pairs of eyes glowing in the darkness between the trees, too high to belong to ordinary wolves. After a while, they began to find strange tracks in the snow, similar to human ones, but with elongated fingers and claws. One of the hunters, a young man named Stepan, began to show signs of nervousness. He kept looking around, flinching at every rustle, and claiming that he heard voices calling him by name. Maria noticed that his behavior was becoming increasingly strange, and his gaze was glazed over, as if he were in a trance. When they stopped for a short break, Stepan suddenly shouted, "They're here! They're watching us!" and ran into the forest, ignoring the shouts of his comrades. The other 2 hunters ran after him, but soon returned empty-handed and with frightened faces. They said that Stepan's tracks had ended in a clearing, as if he had dissolved into thin air, and at the place of his last steps, they found only scraps of clothing and drops of blood on the snow. After that, one of the hunters refused to go any further and turned back to the village, leaving only the most experienced, elderly Trofim with the expedition. By that time, it was already dark, and a full moon, large and yellow, appeared in the sky, illuminating the snowy forest with an eerie light. They quickened their pace, realizing that time was running out. Agafia assured them that they were close, that she felt the special energy of this place, heavy and ancient as the taiga itself. Finally, they came to a small clearing, in the center of which stood a dilapidated hunting cabin. Its walls were leaning, the roof had partially collapsed, and the door had long been torn from its hinges. But even in this state, the cabin exuded some kind of dark energy that made them feel uneasy and cold, despite their warm clothes. They cautiously entered. The interior of the cabin was larger than it seemed from the outside. In the center was a stone hearth covered with a layer of soot accumulated over many years, and around it on the floor were strange symbols carved directly into the wooden boards. In the corner was an old bed, on which the brothers were probably born many years ago. Agafia immediately began to prepare for the ritual, arranging the ingredients she had brought in a certain order around the hearth. Father Mikhail helped her from time to time, crossing himself and whispering prayers. Maria and Trofim took positions at the door and window respectively, holding their weapons ready. When everything was ready, Agafia told everyone to stand around the hearth and hold hands, forming a circle. She threw a mixture of herbs into the center of the hearth, which immediately began to smolder, emitting a strange, spicy odor. Then the healer took out the lock of child's hair, tied with a faded ribbon, and sprinkled it with holy water, saying words in a mixture of Russian and some ancient language. Father Mikhail held the silver cross in front of him, which seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the cabin. The ritual continued, and Maria felt the air in the cabin becoming thicker and heavier, as if electrified. She noticed that the symbols on the floor had begun to glow with a faint, bluish light, and the shadows in the corners had thickened and seemed to take on volume, moving independently of the light sources. Suddenly, a wolf's howl rang out from outside, not one, but two, merging in eerie harmony. It was echoed by the howl of what seemed like hundreds of other wolves, distant but distinct, as if the entire pack had gathered around the cabin. Trofim nervously shifted from foot to foot and gripped his rifle tighter. Agafia accelerated the rhythm of her incantations, her voice becoming louder and more confident. She threw the lock of hair into the smoldering herbs, and it flared up with a bright, unnaturally green flame. At that moment, the door of the cabin burst open with a crash, and two figures appeared on the threshold, tall and distorted, as if in the process of transforming from human to beast. The Volkov brothers looked like both humans and wolves. Their bodies were covered in stiff, gray fur. Their faces were elongated into something resembling muzzles, and long fangs protruded from under their upper lips. They moved with unnatural speed and agility. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light of the cabin. Trofim couldn't stand it and fired, but the bullet seemed to pass through one of the brothers without harming him. In the next moment, he was next to the hunter and tore his throat with one movement of his clawed paw. Maria also fired, aiming at the second brother, and this time the bullet hit its mark. The creature howled in pain, but the wound that would have killed an ordinary person or beast only slowed it down for a few seconds. Father Mikhail stepped forward, holding the cross in front of him and reciting an exorcism prayer. The brothers recoiled, hissing and snarling, but did not retreat. They began to circle around the people, not daring to approach the glowing symbols on the floor, but not allowing the ritual to be completed. Agafia realized that they had little time left. She pulled a knife from behind her bosom and, before anyone could stop her, slashed her wrist. Her blood dripped onto the smoldering herbs, and the flame flared up again, now red and furious. "I am also a Volkov," the old woman whispered. "Their maternal great-aunt. My blood should be enough." The effect was immediate and dramatic. The flame in the hearth rose to the ceiling, forming a pillar of fire in which faces and figures seemed to flicker. The Volkov brothers howled in unison. Their bodies began to distort even more, twitching and transforming painfully into human and wolf forms. Father Mikhail continued to recite prayers, now in a loud, commanding voice, and Agafia echoed him in her ancient language. Maria stood next to them, mesmerized by what was happening, unable to tear her gaze away from the horrifying spectacle. Suddenly, the flame in the hearth changed color to a deep, almost black, purple, and a figure resembling a man with the head of a wolf formed from it, the very one that Felcher Alexander had described in his diary. The creature addressed the brothers in a strange language consisting of growls, clicks, and guttural sounds. Its voice was like thunder filling the entire cabin, causing the walls to shake and crumble. The brothers, in terror, fell to their knees as if begging for mercy, but the creature was inexorable. It stretched out its hand, more like a wolf's paw, and the brothers began to scream. Their bodies seemed to be tearing apart from the inside, and their skin cracked, exposing not blood and flesh, but a strange, glowing substance resembling molten silver. In the last moment, one of the brothers, already almost completely devoid of human form, rushed at Maria with the clear intention of dragging her with him into his terrible agony. Father Mikhail was faster. He pushed the teacher away and took the blow himself. The creature's claws sank into the priest's chest, and he fell, covering the cracked floorboards with blood. Maria screamed and shot the attacking brother point-blank in the head. This time, the shot hit its mark. The creature staggered back, its head shattered, but instead of blood and brain, the same silvery light gushed from the wound. The second brother, still writhing in agony, turned his distorted face to them and uttered his last words, unexpectedly, clearly, and humanly. "We will return. We always return." In the next moment, both creatures exploded in a cascade of silvery light that seemed to devour them from within, leaving nothing but ashes. The wolf-headed figure in the fire also began to dissolve, shrinking and losing shape, until it simply turned into a pillar of black smoke, which burst through the hole in the roof and dissolved into the night sky. A sudden silence fell. Even the howling of the wolves in the forest had ceased, as if the pack had lost its leaders and fallen into confusion. Maria rushed to Father Mikhail, but it was too late. The wounds inflicted by the creature's claws were fatal. The priest was dying, but his face was frozen in an expression of strange peace. "We won," he whispered. "At least for now. But be vigilant, Maria Petrovna. Such evil never disappears completely. It only waits for its hour to return." These were his last words. Father Mikhail died before they could carry him out of the cabin, and Agafya was also in a serious condition. The loss of blood and the tension of the ritual had taken the old woman's last strength. She died on the way back to the village, only managing to say to Maria, "Don't leave, teacher. The children need someone to protect them, someone who knows the truth." Maria returned to Chorny Bor alone, carrying the bodies of her companions on hastily made drags. The villagers met her with distrust and fear, but when they saw the ashes on her clothes and heard her story, distrust turned into superstitious horror. Father Mikhail and Agafya were buried with honors, and the hunters Trofim and Stepan, whose body was never found, were commemorated with a special service. In the months that followed, life in Chorny Bor gradually returned to normal. The wolves no longer troubled the village, the disappearances stopped, and people began to forget the horror they had experienced. Maria opened the school as planned and gradually won the trust and respect of the local residents. She never told her students about the Volkov brothers, but she always watched the forest carefully, especially on the full moon. A year after those events, a new priest, a young and energetic Father Ioan, arrived in Chorny Bor. He quickly set about restoring the church and the community, and life in the village became even more normal and measured. Maria and Father Ioan became good friends, but she never told him about what had happened in the hunting cabin on the night of the full moon. One day, almost 2 years later, Maria found a strange bundle on her doorstep. Inside was a lock of light-colored child's hair, tied with a faded ribbon, exactly the same as the one Agafya had used in the ritual. Attached was a note written in an elegant female hand. "I heard that you were looking for me. My name is Natalia Volkova, and I know more about my family than I would like to. They never go away forever, teacher. Protect the children and wait for me on the next full moon." Maria didn't know what to do with this information. Should she prepare for a new battle with ancient evil? Or had Natalia come to help finally destroy the curse of her family? In any case, Maria was ready. She had lived in Chorny Bor long enough to understand that in the Siberian taiga, ancient forces never slumbered. In truth, they were only waiting for the right moment to return. Although official church records never mention the true nature of the Volkov brothers, their story continued to live on in the oral traditions of the residents of Chorny Bor and the surrounding villages. Mothers frightened disobedient children with stories of the wolf brothers who come on the full moon for those who dare to walk after sunset. Hunters did not go to certain parts of the taiga, where, according to rumors, one can still hear a strange howl, unlike either a wolf or a human. And the old men, sitting by the fire on long winter evenings, told of the curse of the Volkov family, which might never be completely lifted. What happened to Maria Petrova and the mysterious Natalia Volkova? Official archives remain silent. It is only known that the school in Chorny Bor existed for about another 10 years, until it was closed due to the consolidation of a neighboring village. The name of Maria Petrova is mentioned in the documents of the Education Department until 1884, after which she disappears from official records. There is, however, a curious entry in the parish church register from 1885, in which the new priest, Father Ioan, mentions a strange incident. 2 women, a teacher and her friend, went into the taiga on the night of the full moon and did not return. The search was unsuccessful, but local residents claimed that they heard a wolf's howl that night, louder and more prolonged than usual, and some even saw strange lights in the sky above the forest. It is also interesting that after the disappearance of Maria and the supposed Natalia, cases of people disappearing in the vicinity of Chorny Bor ceased for several decades. Wolves, previously numerous in this part of the taiga, almost disappeared, and the few that hunters saw avoided people and behaved like ordinary wild animals. But the story does not end there. In 1918, at the height of the Civil War, when detachments of Reds and Whites were passing through Siberia, a Chaika detachment arrived in Chorny Bor, by that time significantly grown and renamed Krasny Bor, Red Bor, to requisition church valuables. The detachment commander, Commissar Varnin, ordered that all church books and archives be confiscated for inspection for counter-revolutionary materials. Among the seized documents was a strange diary, written in a female hand and dated 1875 and 1784. The author, signing herself as MP, described strange phenomena in the surrounding forests and a certain ritual that had to be performed every full moon to maintain some kind of seal. The Commissar considered the diary a sample of religious obscurantism and ordered it to be burned along with other church books. That same night, the Chaika detachment, stationed in the building of the former church, was attacked. According to the official version, these were white guards or local kulaks, but the surviving Red Army soldiers told of two strange creatures, resembling both humans and wolves, who moved with inhuman speed and seemed invulnerable to bullets. Of the 20 men in the detachment, only 3 remained alive, and all of them were subsequently placed in a psychiatric hospital with a diagnosis of combat-related mental trauma. After this incident, people began to disappear again in Krasny Bor and the surrounding villages. First, lone travelers or hunters disappeared, then entire families. The Soviet authorities attributed the disappearances to the actions of bandit formations or kulak elements, but the locals knew the truth. The Volkov brothers had returned, and their curse had once again fallen on this land. In 1927, a scientific expedition from the Academy of Sciences was sent to Krasny Bor to study the local fauna, in particular the unusually large population of wolves discovered in the area. The expedition disappeared without a trace, and only a few months later hunters found the remains of their camp and some strange photographs in the taiga. One of them depicted 2 tall men on the edge of the forest. Their faces are blurred, but the silhouettes are clear and recognizable to those who knew the legend of the Volkov brothers. During the Great Patriotic War and in the post-war years, reports of strange disappearances in the Krasny Bor area practically ceased. Local residents explained this by the fact that even such an ancient evil as the Volkov brothers had retreated before an even greater evil, the war and famine brought by people. Some old men claimed to have seen wolves fighting German soldiers trying to pass through the taiga, as if nature itself had risen up against the invaders. In the 1960s, with the beginning of active industrial development of Siberia, Krasny Bor, by that time turned into a small worker settlement at a sawmill, again attracted attention with strange incidents. Workers engaged in logging in a certain part of the taiga began to complain of inexplicable breakdowns of equipment, sudden illnesses, and accidents. Several people went missing, and their bodies were never found. Local old-timers warned that this part of the forest was cursed, that there was an ancient pagan site there that should not be disturbed, but the Soviet leaders did not attach importance to superstitions and continued logging. In the end, a serious accident occurred. The gas tank of one of the tractors exploded, and the fire destroyed most of the sawmill and several residential buildings. After that, the project was curtailed, and the settlement gradually became deserted, turning into one of the numerous dying villages of modern Siberia. In the 1990s, when access to many previously classified archives was opened, a group of paranormal researchers became interested in the legend of the Volkov brothers. They found mentions of strange incidents in this area of Siberia dating back to Tsarist times, as well as Soviet reports of unexplained disappearances of people and abnormal behavior of animals. In 1996, an expedition was organized to study this phenomenon. The researchers spent several months in the former Krasny Bor, now an almost abandoned settlement, interviewing the few remaining residents and exploring the surrounding forests. They did not find direct evidence of the existence of the werewolf brothers, but they collected an impressive collection of circumstantial evidence. Strange tracks resembling both human and wolf, unexplained sound anomalies recorded on audio recordings, and eyewitness accounts claiming to have seen tall people running on all fours or talking to wolves. The most intriguing discovery of the expedition was the finding, in the ruins of an old church, of a stone slab with symbols carved on it similar to those described in the diary of Feldsher Alexander Volkov. According to an analysis conducted by specialists, The symbols were a mixture of ancient shamanic writing of local tribes and early Christian signs used in exorcism rituals. There was also an inscription on the slab in Old Slavonic, which was partially deciphered. Here are sealed the brothers, until the blood of their race every full moon does not violate the circle. The rest of the text was damaged and could not be read. Interestingly, one of the expedition members, a young anthropologist named Dmitry Sergeyev, discovered a connection with the Volkov surname in his family tree. His great-grandmother, Natalia Sergeyeva, née Volkova, was from these places and, according to family traditions, had the ability to talk to wolves and predict the weather by their howling. Dmitry felt a strange attraction to this story, as if something in his blood responded to an ancient call. On the last night of the expedition, which happened to fall on a full moon, Dmitry disappeared from the camp. His colleagues organized a search, but without success. Only at dawn did they find his backpack on the edge of the forest, and next to it strange tracks on the ground, as if someone had first walked on two legs, and then dropped to all fours and ran into the depths of the taiga. And most strangely, these tracks were not alone. Next to them were two more pairs of similar footprints, as if three creatures were running together into the depths of the ancient forest. This story, like many others associated with the Volkov brothers, remained without an official explanation. Skeptics believe that all these cases can be explained by rational reasons. Attacks by ordinary wolves or bears, accidents in the taiga, desertion, or flight from the authorities. But for those who are familiar with the legends of Siberia, who have spent the winter in a remote village and heard the howling of wolves on the full moon, the truth seems much stranger and more frightening. Even today, in the age of the internet and satellite communications, there are places in the Siberian taiga where even the most experienced hunters and foresters do not risk going, places where, according to rumors, you can still see strange lights at night and hear a howl unlike either a wolf or a human, places where people disappear. And the few who return refuse to talk about what they saw, only crossing themselves and asking not to be questioned. If you ever find yourself in a small Siberian village, lost among the vast taiga, and hear from the locals the story of the Volkov brothers, do not rush to laugh or express skepticism. Just remember, some legends live so long because they are based on a truth too strange and terrible to be recorded in official documents. And some names are better not spoken aloud, especially on the full moon, when the boundary between our world and the world of ancient forces becomes especially thin. As for church records, you will not find any mention of the Volkov brothers and their curse in them. This story is too dark even for church archives. Some things are so frightening that even the church prefers to remain silent about them, erasing all mentions from official documents and entrusting the preservation of the truth only to the oral tradition passed down from generation to generation, whispered around the night campfire. And if you suddenly hear a wolf's howl, too melodious and harmonious for an ordinary beast, if you notice strange tracks in the snow resembling both human and wolf, or feel someone's close gaze from the depths of the forest, do not stop, do not look back, just keep going faster, while there is still time to leave, because the Volkov brothers are always hungry, always hunting, and their curse never truly dies. It only waits, lurking in the darkest corners of the Siberian taiga, when someone again utters their names aloud and awakens the ancient evil to a new life.